Welcome to the Virtual Cuppa. I'm your host, Dr. Alison Creed from Arts Teaching Innovation, Faculty of Arts at the University of Melbourne. And I host the Virtual Cuppa as your space for partnership and collaboration about all things to do with online teaching and learning. Your challenges, opportunities that you found, and solutions. This week, as a wrap-up, I thought I would put together just a couple of clips of some of our special guests, because I know you don't have time to come to all of the Virtual Cuppa sessions. So I hope you enjoy this little compilation today and welcome you back to next week for more special guests at the Virtual Cuppa. See you then. Bye.
And what were the three, to sum up, can you go back through them for me, your three key points?
Excellent. So my key 3 points are multiple means of representation. And that means planned redundancy in what an educator does. Put things in multiple modes: voice, text, interactivity. The next is multiple means of engagement. Remember that students come to the experience with different capacities and different allowances in time and energy, and that they're going to be motivated because of that in different ways. So seek different ways of engaging and motivating students, including gamification, bringing in fun and challenge. And the third is multiple means of expression. And whereas representation is what the educator does, expression is what the student does. So allow them choice. Allow them to choose the mode at which they will express themselves and which will get them to further towards their goal of where they want to be, including career success. Allow them to choose how they will express and prove their learning.
If we're doing all that, we're creating a very exciting future for higher education. Thanks again, Shelley. This has been wonderful. Thanks for coming on to the Virtual Cuppa, and I'm sure we will see you again very soon.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you all. Bye. Thanks to my team for being awesome, interactive.
If I had to try to sum up, I think in the current context, I would be talking about sort of humanism and sincerity and trust and care, and allowing students some flexibility to demonstrate the learning outcomes in different ways. And perhaps we have to be a little bit less procedural in the current climate to accommodate for the different situations that students may find themselves in. But I think the overall aims of good sustainable assessment and good sustainable feedback would be that we are trying to develop the lifelong learning skills amongst the students, and that good quality peer feedback and well-motivated student self-assessment can play a part in those roles. And I think perhaps we as educators can try to model some of these processes for the students and maybe explain to them and exemplify the role of peer review in our work, and how we are always trying to self-evaluate our own performance, talking with peers, talking with colleagues for the purposes of lifelong learning.
When part of my role became setting up a new fully online Master of Addiction Studies, I really took the time to try to think about how I was going to do that. So how am I going to get myself online, because you can't do the same thing as you do face-to-face. So really trying out different things and seeing what worked for me and what worked well for the students. And that sometimes differed a little bit with the cohorts, to see some responded really well to one thing and others not. So it's also a little bit, it's not static, but they just want a real presence. They want an authentic presence, whether it's in the classroom or online. And I think you need to be a bit brave and just try it out and feel that you are backed. And I think a lot of people, because of this challenging situation, they do feel backed by the university. They feel, well, okay, I really don't have much of a choice. I'm just going to try it. And I think that's really a huge gain. So everybody will have a little bit of experience at least.
So do you think is there a shift in people's personal style, when particularly like with the University of Melbourne, where a vast majority of people are used to just being in the concrete space of being on campus and having their students there? Do they change both? Does their personal style need to change, or is there a shift, or is there an evolution of it? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think evolution might be a good word, because I think first they have to get used to all the technological changes that they have to work with. And I think initially that is a bit of a jumping in the deep end approach as well. And when you feel on top of that, I think that's when you're ready to really look at, okay, so how am I going to engage, and how am I going to set boundaries, for example, as also when I'm going to engage with the students, because initially people might be continuously on there in discussion boards or doing their email because they feel like that's what their students need. So they need to get to a balance almost.
What's a way forward? So if I was teaching French, for instance, how would I go about starting to initiate kind of a collaboration around introducing something like this into the program?
So that's essentially what I've been doing as part of the Mixed Reality Research Lab over about the last 6 to 7 years. Acting as a collaborator with lots of different faculties. So I collaborate with the health sciences and medicine faculty. I collaborate with architecture, construction. I've worked with multiple institutions where I think you need a discipline expert who's got a passion about wanting to explore their pedagogical practice. I think that's number one. You've got to be inspired to want to take on the journey of something new. So I think that's the first bit. So you need discipline expertise. There is no doubt about it, because otherwise what you're producing doesn't have a depth of capacity for that particular discipline. Doesn't mean you need to be an expert in virtual or augmented reality yourself. It just means that you've got a desire to want to explore different pedagogical practices.
Things. This is a real work environment. You don't get thrown every day into working with brand new groups of people unless you come onto the Virtual Cuppa, which you do.
Nice, Alison. Way to bring it home.
So we've got a couple of minutes left before I actually wrap this up, literally almost about 3 minutes or so. Anybody else who has got a bit of something that they'd like to share about what's been happening in WIL in their campus environment?
We're working on a subject that you might be interested in, Christy, that has to do with ethnography. So we have an anthropology professor who is trying to teach her students ethnography, and the way we're doing it is we're using the ATI, the Arts Teaching Innovation, as an internal industry reference group. And those students are doing ethnographic research into students, into the way tertiary education works within the university itself. So I've literally had her contact me a week ago to say, we're about to do it again, so how do we make this work online now? So that's our next step. So much of what you've said is very, very relevant to exactly what we're doing now.
Awesome. So that's the students as research partners approach, just applied internally. Brilliant.
Yep, exactly. And we as the ATI get a real insight into how students are seeing the education process, which is fascinating in and of itself, because students are obviously far more willing to speak to each other openly and I guess critically at times, which is a wonderful insight for us. And at the same time, they're feeling the work they're doing is real, it's valued, it goes to us to then try to look at if there are ways that we can use that data to improve the way we're delivering the teaching.
It's a really great group too, because it's an arts group, so it's got students coming from a range of disciplines as well. So that's fascinating, even for the students to be thrown together with such a diversity as well.
And also seeing how ethnography works in a workplace, ways that you can use that approach in a workplace is really fascinating too. So it's been really interesting from a number of angles. So yeah.
Nice. It's good. That's great to know that you're using that very systematic approach. And I may follow up with you if I ever get to build a new WIL program.
More than welcome.